Good morning, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to our first Investor Day at Irani. We are extremely honored to have this opportunity to share with our investors our plans for growth and how the company is doing at the moment and how different projects with the Gaia platform have been heading. So welcome, everyone. My name is Sergio Ribas. I am the CEO at Irani. And we also have here our panelists, all of our directors. Ojivan Kagni, he's our IR Finances Director. Ojivan, would you like to say hello? Hello, good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with our first Investor Day. As everyone knows, we've migrated to the market in December, and we are experimenting this new level of governance and having this opportunity to share more about Irani with you. So this is a very good opportunity for us to be sharing more knowledge to our audience. And thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. And I hope you enjoy this morning and this opportunity to get to know more about how we work and how we influence and do business. We also have Fabiano Oliveira. He is our People Strategy and Management Director. And Hiki Zagman, he's our Director responsible for the paper, forestry, and resins business. And Lindomar Lima, he's our Director responsible for corrugated cardboard packages. So welcome, everyone. You can share the presentation now. Great, we can move on. So just some general guidance here about the event. We will have simultaneous translation in English by Zoom. So welcome, everyone. If you only speak English, we'll have simultaneous translation available through the Zoom platform. You just need to activate the interpretation feature on the button below and choose English. We are going to be broadcasting in Portuguese on YouTube Live, and it'll be available in the YouTube page also. The event will be recorded and will be available in English and Portuguese on the company's website. And all of the questions can be submitted by chat on YouTube or through the Q&A feature on Zoom directly. Or if you'd possibly prefer to have a live question, you can just request this on chat and open up your microphone. You can move on. The agenda for today, we're going to be talking about our strategy a bit. Irani is completing 80 years of history this year. So I'm going to talk about what moves us, the trends in the paper and packages sector, the strategy for 21 to 2030, the overall paper market for packages, the market for resins, and the market for packages and corrugated cardboard. We're going to talk about people, sustainability, and innovation, and finally generating unique economic value. That will be presented by Ojiva. And finally, at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So please feel free to write down any points that call your attention so that after we can cover them and dive deeper in the Q&A section. So we can move on. Now, this year we've completed our 80th anniversary, a company that is very traditional. We are the third company for paper in the packaging sector in Brazil, third biggest. And we have very solid values in the company and a strong vision focused on the future. So we're completing 80 years of existence. We've been rejuvenated by the recent IPO and the investments we've been receiving. And the motto for our 80th anniversary campaign was really developing the future is what moves us. We're really focused on growth, development, modernization for the company. And this is what we would like to share with you a bit throughout the morning today. Let's move ahead. What moves you? We are part of nature. We are integrated to nature. Nature provides us with well-being and prosperity, and we must keep its resources alive for the continuity of life and the healthy relationship we should have with it. It's an exchange, a cycle that needs to be continuous. And this cycle will only occur when we don't leave any sides behind. When we can embrace and package life, we evolve in a single vibration, because our development is only sustainable if there is engagement with life for people and the planet. Irani, 80 years. Developing the future is what moves us. Great. So our operations are already present in 4 states. Our main plant is where I'm actually based in Santa Catarina at the moment, in the municipality of Vargem Bonita, in the western region of Santa Catarina, where we have 4 paper machines, a packaging production plant, our forestry assets dedicated to the production of pulp. We have an office as well in Joaçaba. Then we have a corrugated cardboard conversion unit in Indaiatuba. We have a recycled paper unit in Santa Luzia and Minas Gerais. And in Rio Grande do Sul, we also have our headquarters, the headquarters of the Habita Sul and Irani operation. And we have a unit as well for resins and the forestry asset, which is located in the coastal region in Balneário Pinhal, where we have the production unit for rosin and turpentine. So the 3 businesses basically that you can see here are main production businesses. So we have the most significant when it comes to revenue, which is corrugated cardboard packaging and paper for packages, where we have a production that's completely integrated. And we have the resins unit that also represents about 10% of our revenue overall. So now about the trends in the paper and packaging sector. This is a sector that is very prosperous, and there's a very positive trend and dynamic that we've been experimenting and working on, with a growth process that is very robust foreseen for the sector in the midterm and in the short term as well. And this is due to the strong trends that we have in the world for sustainability. It's a circular economy business by definition. At its essence, we produce the raw materials with forests that we plant and certify and manage adequately. We produce paper, we convert these into corrugated cardboard packages, we perform distribution, consumption takes place by the society overall, and then of course you have a process with waste generated that are also in the circular economy process mostly, and our product is basically all recycled. And this is a process at Irani where we are probably the best positioned company as one of the paper recyclers. Most of the paper we produce are recyclables, and we believe in the business a lot, because this is a business that tends to be strengthened more and more with technologies that are more and more advanced for recycling. So this is a big topic for us in the sector and society as a whole. And the sector overall is very well positioned and takes advantage of this trend, which is a trend really that society demands for products that are more sustainable. And paper, by definition, is biodegradable, totally recyclable, and very well accepted as a packaging material to substitute other materials as well. So this is a trend that's becoming stronger, and paper is entering some niches where it wasn't present before, which opens up major opportunities for the sector and also many challenges when it comes to innovation, to be able to substitute this with the same features and capacities that other materials have that initially might be more adequate when it comes to functionalities. But the paper takes on a development of different apps that are better to substitute the materials, especially plastics, which naturally have a social rejection towards due to the environmental impacts. So this business, that's really a circular economy by definition, it has a very positive trend. So this is probably the biggest trend that strengthens our sector. Another trend that we see as well in the overall market is, well, here just to add on one point, we have this competitive advantage. We have the highest rate of recyclability among materials. Paper has 79.8% recycling rate, according to the National Association of Scrap Collectors, ANAPI. And certainly most of the companies have a recycling component that's very significant in their production processes. In our cases, 70% of the paper we produce is based on recycled fibers. So this is a recent survey McKinsey organized recently, testing the chances of people to pay more for products that use recycled and sustainable materials. 86% of the customers in China say that they would pay more if they had access to packages that were more sustainable. 75% in Indonesia, 68% in the US, 66% in Brazil, and 56 to 59% in Germany, Italy, India, and the UK, and 48% in Japan and France. So there is a social demand that's stronger for the use of recyclable materials and products that are more adequate for environmental issues especially. We can move on. So we are really prepared for this and in line with this trend. So the big opportunity, but there are big challenges, and we have developed many different products to service this need and this demand. For more sustainable products, we've developed the Poland paper, a specific package for Nespresso to place the capsules that they use for coffee. So when you buy the capsules in the Nespresso store, they already deliver this package to you so that you don't throw this away with normal trash, and that you can reutilize this and recycle it. So this is biodegradable paper. It's recyclable to leaks or humidity and dry climates. So it's specifically developed for this customer to be able to meet the needs for recycling that the actual capsules have. We also developed some paper. All right, we can go back. Sorry, that was the wrong slide. Exactly. So have you ever imagined containing packages that are free of virus, bacteria, and fungus? As we thought of this, we've developed the first paper that's antiviral, antibacterial at Irani. And it's also anti-COVID, health, hygiene, and safety. The action takes place in 5 minutes after contact, with 99.9% efficacy. The active principle that's atoxic with silver ions, and protection throughout the entire life cycle of the package, which is recycled and recyclable. At Irani, this is how we do things. We are pioneers, we innovate, and we have technology to take care of people. Find out more about the first antiviral paper package in Brazil at our website. So this is also a recent development we've organized. Antiviral paper is being very well accepted. We have a volume of sales that's already significant in the market, and there is a prognosis that's very positive for this kind of solution, especially strengthened by the pandemic situation. But this issue with health, hygiene, and cleaning is very strong as a demand also from the overall market. And we were the first company to develop paper that had this kind of capacity for protection. And this is extremely welcomed among customers. So another very strong trend that strengthens the sector overall is e-commerce. So e-commerce uses an amount of packages that's greater than traditional retail because the corrugated cardboard package goes all the way to the end user, differently than traditional retail, so you use more packages. And the prognosis is for two-digit growth in the next year. So in 2020, we had growth of 48% in e-commerce in Brazil compared to 2019. And the forecasts for growth for 2021 are 30% for the next years, and we should be growing significantly in the next years as well, with a growth rate annually forecasted for 2024 of 18% on average. In the US, for example, the same. In China, we see e-commerce represents about the 18% would be the representation of how much percent of retail will be represented by e-commerce. So it grows double digits, and it takes on an important share of retail. I see Brazil still only has 12%, so the potential for growth in this type of e-commerce operation in Brazil is very big. Here in the US, it's a little greater. It's about 14% in retail. And in China, it already represents in 2021 52%. So this number from China shows you what the potential is really for this sector and how impacting this can be really for our sector overall. So throughout the pandemic, we did have a huge demand for this kind of package, and this is something that made the overall market grow, and it should be a very strong trend for growth in the next years as well. So these two major trends I've mentioned, with sustainability and products for hygiene, cleaning, and health, and e-commerce, are very strong trends that forecast a substantial growth in the sector in the next years. Let's continue now with the next slide. So we've also just recently launched our website for commercialization of these packages. Besides the packages for e-commerce, we've also commercialized some packages directly with the Emballé website. We had over 100 customers since June, 15 products, 4 categories, and this has been growing strongly month over month. We double in sales month over month, and it's interesting to see how this business has been evolving with a very positive trend for growth in this kind of channel as well. So let's move on. Our strategy for 2021 and 2030, we have some strategic cycles every 3 years, headed 10 years ahead. So every 3 years, we look at the 10 next years. We've just left the cycle from 2021 and 2030 where we defined the main points of the strategy for this 10-year cycle. We redefined our strategic intentions. We've redefined the spirit and pace of the growth in this cycle in the overall company as well. And I'm going to be talking about this with you as well in greater depth now. So we redefined our purpose. This was the first cycle where we redefined our purpose. It was a very intense discussion, and I think the purpose is really permeated by these issues with sustainability that are so important in this new world. And we've placed this purpose in a very strong position, transforming people's lives with attitudes and solutions that are sustainable. This is very comprehensive because we want to have products and solutions that are sustainable, but we also want to have corporate attitudes among our employees and citizens in order to really make sustainability go through the overall company and in all of the relations we have established. So we want to transform people's lives with attitudes and sustainable solutions, which is at the background of all of our strategy. Our mission, the purpose and reason for our existence in the company, which is already a mission we've had for many cycles, which is building relationships with value to generate prosperity. So we believe that in a company, it's all focused on relationships. We're B2B, right? We sell to other companies. So relationships with suppliers, customers, and employees, as well as investors, is fundamental. So we understand that the relationships must be value-filled, and value-filled relations have to be good for both parties, not only for Irani. So it's a relationship that's trust-based. We are moved by the ethics of trust. So trust is the basis for our relationships in the company and with our relationships with our customers, partners, and suppliers. And so throughout time, this creates a lot of value. So we have unique pricing in the market, premium prices in regards to most of our competitors, due to the quality of the relationships we establish with our customers and the overall vision we have of partnerships and generating prosperity for the overall reality. So it's not just about Irani being prosperous. We want everyone to be winning together with us. So our mission day to day really guides all of our actions, creating value relationships that can generate prosperity. And our vision is what moves us. It's that target or goal that makes everything we do really be moved by this. Our vision is to be the best and most admired company in the business segments we operate in. And the vision is always in the perception of the other. So we're not saying we are the best, but we want to constantly, in everything we do, search for excellence. Excellence in our products, in our relationships, in our networking and technologies we use, in the relationships and communication with investors. We want to always achieve excellency. This is what's going to be moving us. We're not going to be able to say we're the best, but we will always be moved by the mission of being the best and search for excellence in everything we do, and the most admired company in the businesses we operate in. This is a concept we really like, which is really admiring. So when others look at you and say, wow, that's really interesting, these guys really take on a very important role in society, and they contribute to generate value. They contribute to generate prosperity, and people admire the company. This generates a lot of value, not only for our shareholders, but the overall scenario. So being the best and most admired company in the businesses we operate in. So this is our vision and our ongoing search. And our values that were also reviewed during this cycle. Of course, values are not something that change every cycle as we plan, but we always try to have a new perception on these values, trying to reestablish some, especially some that we consider that are a little more contemporary. And in this cycle, we've redefined a few and we've reclassified a few. So our first value is always life, above all. We respect all of the lives that are part of our ecosystem. We search for balance and safety in everything we do. And when we talk about life as a first value, we are talking about how we take care of people. We're talking about ecology and the overall life quality. Balance between personal life and professional life. Safety, and this is the dimension we're talking about when we consider life first. So sustainability is a fundamental value for us. We balance this out with adequate governance and the protagonism as well. This is a very important value for us. Empowering people. We really make this happen. We're brave and we believe in autonomy and empowerment. So the horizontality of the management with the new generations, this needs to provide meaning to everything that's done. So we want to have meaning in our work, and this protagonism is fundamental for a modern company that's really focused on the future. Diversity and inclusion. And when we see our vision of diversity, it's really about respecting individuals. It's about how each person is unique and must be recognized and worked on and welcomed due to their own individuality. So we respect and welcome each individual. We value the power of difference. We try to treat people with cordiality and respect, which is fundamental for value creation. We believe this is something very important and strong for us. So this kindness in our relationships, we understand that integrity and ethics are the basis for everything we do. This is unnegotiable, and it's something that's very strong in our culture. Then finally, a customer focus. This is a concept we've really brought to our strategy for a long time, really being close to customers. And with your own skill set, you can help your customers to be prosperous and develop themselves. So we understand the challenges of our customers, and we work together with the necessary excellence and benefiting prosperity, innovation. Also, we really value what's new. We understand that resilience, agility, and the capacity to make mistakes is necessary for new innovation. So this is a topic we've been working on for quite a while. We are more and more mature. We've developed solutions that are very disruptive in our sector. And we've just launched the Irani Labs 2 years ago with our connection and startups. And this is a very important value for a company that's focused on the future and that understands that occupying these opportunities that are being provided in the overall market will really depend on the capacity for innovation that the companies will have. So this is our strategic intention, and we also have the map of the strategy, where it's important to mention a point, the cycle of planning that we've been working on and that we had a really strong focus on in 2017 and 2018 on this cycle of investments that are taking place now, which really is about profitabilizing the current platform in the company, providing a better competitive advantage, expanding the capacity in the current factories, modernizing, automating, and the recovery boiler is such an important investment in our history. But the focus is in our current platform, in this important strong growth in the market and market share. This was our cycle for 2018-2027. In this cycle, we are focusing, this is our next investment cycle, where we're really focusing on growth. So we want to increase the production of corrugated cardboard packaging, evolving in market shares, and growing above the capital costs to generate unique value for shareholders. So we shifted in strategies. Maybe one of the most fundamental points was that in the previous cycle, we had a focus in the current platform, addressing all of the competitive issues in our current production plants, so that in the next cycle, with the necessary structure we'll have for the margins, we can really focus on growth with new production plants for packaging and new paper machines, and also with the production of pulp. And then we have other objectives as well that are not least important, but I wanted to mention this difference in the focus of this cycle. We have clear objectives when it comes to people and culture, processes, customers, and financially as well. Each of these objectives involve projects, actions, and the overall work methods of the company, specific metrics, and the annual monitoring of the strategy. This has been the main influential factor, and that really set the basis for the growth of the company in the past 20 years, or 28 years, actually, since 1994, when we've been controlled by the Habitasul group. Great, so let's move on. We've also taken on in this cycle of strategic planning some public commitments when it comes to sustainability and ESG. So in regards to occupational and labor safety, we've taken on the commitment to have zero labor accidents with dismissals, and we had a big commitment to diversity. We have almost 20% of our overall employee base is women, but we want to double this, and the paper and pulp companies have this characteristic of being very male oriented, with a strong number of male employees, but we can have women in basically all of the positions at the moment. So we want to have at least 40% in the overall company of women occupying positions, and at least 50% in the administrative positions. So it's really bringing into the company what you have in society, which is the split between men and women, and the importance of having this kind of the element that women have with this sensible aspect that we consider to be fundamental for strategy and for the overall operation. Now, water, we've taken on the commitment to reduce 30% of specific water consumption. Water is used strongly in our processes and the production of paper. Energy, we want to have this, and with the investments in the Gaia platform, we will reach 2025 with 100% renewable energy in all of our businesses. up until 2025, and we'll be self-sufficient when it comes to energy generation. Then we want to zero the submission of non-hazardous waste to landfills, and we want to increase our balance of the reduction and of greenhouse gas emissions. So these are 6 commitments that we have specific targets to reach in regards to the SDGs that are very big challenges for us as well. So here now about the Gaia platform. The Gaia platform is really this investment cycle. These are 3 cycles actually in the platform, which really intend to expand competitive advantages and productive capacity and conquer the energy efficiency. And so in 2020 and 2023, we're investing $883 million in Gaia 1, the expansion of the recovery of chemicals with the recovery boiler. Gaia 2 would be the expansion of Santa Catarina. Gaia 3 is a restructuring of Machine 2 and the PHCs. And the second cycle would be investments that are more focused on marginal gains of productivity in the current production plants. We have the Gaia 4, which is for the management and digitalization of the processes in our operations. Gaia 7 is the expansion of the treatment station for wastewater, and also the substitution of this new printer in the unit in São Paulo, and the automation of the intermediate inventory in the packaging unit in São Paulo. But these are smaller projects, but they're equally important for productivity gains. And in Gaia 2, we have 2 projects under studies that are quite advanced in the conceptual engineering aspects, with the expansion of the Papel Minas Gerais, and these will be approved. Actually, they still depend on approval on behalf of the board, so that we can have projects that are really having good returns, just as all of the other ones that are approved, and adequate for the next phase of expansion in the company. So we have the expansion of Papel Minas Gerais and Usina Flor do Mato, that's in the Gaia platform. And for the next cycle of investments that are focused on expansion, we are defining 3 main evolution fronts. We also have the conceptual engineering phase for these projects that take place soon after the Gaia platform, which is a new pulp production line that's focused on pulp that's adapted actually for the production of paper for corrugated cardboard with more rigidity in the fiber, a new paper machine that's focused on the production of the kraft liner, as well as recycled paper with cutting-edge technology. We really believe in new technologies for paper production, with papers that have more tests, higher quality, and really revolutionizing the recycling of paper in Brazil with machines that are very qualified, which is what we can see in Europe with papers that have a smaller width and grammage than what we see in Brazil. So we can see that this places a competitive advantage in regards to our competitors with our own energy and paper that have less use of fibers, which will give us a competitive advantage that is sustainable and long-lasting when compared to our competitors. And as we have more paper available, we always plan to have packaging plants that are close to our level of production of paper, really valuing the integration. We understand that this is the most sustainable model. So as soon as we have the production of paper for these production plants as well. So we have the conceptual engineering phase. This is the new cycle. This is what we're already working on and conceiving. The Gaia platform after the Minas platform will be practically ready when it comes to entering the execution phase for the projects, and that's when we're going to be entering this new investment phase. So a company with a prognosis that is very, very positive. Everything is very well designed and thought of, and it generates a lot of value for our investors in the short and mid and long term as well. So now I'll pass on the word to Henrique. He's going to be talking about the paper market for packages. Well, good morning, everyone, and how's it going? Now I'm going to talk about the paper market for packaging, and I'm going to explain what we do, who we are, and our positioning. So we can move on to the next slide. Great. I want to remind you all that we are the third biggest production of paper for packaging in Brazil. So what is paper for packaging? Well, basically paper for boxes, cardboard, corrugated cardboard boxes, and packages and papers that are more flexible, like delivery bags and other purposes I'll show you up ahead. So you can see we grew 75% in the past 15 years, while the overall market grew 32%. So we grew way above market levels. Then moving ahead in the next part of the presentation, it's important to mention that our sector is completely related to the GDP growth. This is one of the growth vectors, and when we take a look at the growth vectors for till 2030, it's very positive. Besides the GDP, we also have the issue with sustainability and the substitution of plastic by paper in many purposes and applications I'll be discussing up ahead. So the drivers for growth for our segment are very positive. Moving ahead, I want to get into the final or end uses, and it's important to see how we are really present in everyone's life. So starting off here, if you were to look at the fine craft product line with paper bags for bread, when you get the little packages for like cakes, salty snacks, when you look at the industrial bags, for example, for charcoal, cements, animal feed, bags for the food sector, evaporative panels, envelopes, bags for retailers, delivery bags. So we some tape as well. So you can see even the part of the handle of the bag, which is also made out of paper. So we have a complete solution for everything you're looking at, and many different applications and many different niches we operate with. So this is one of the other, these are all forms of use and applications that we're always thinking of with different niches. And all of these areas I've mentioned, we are a reference in the national market, not only for prices, but also for quality and products. Moving ahead, here you can see I've already mentioned that we are a national reference in paper production for delivery bags. And it's important to mention that before we had the digital platforms, we already operated in the delivery segment, but with the digital platforms, we are the first main supplier of all of the digital platforms in Brazil. When there was this turnover in 2020, due to the pandemic, we were the company that most went through this phase. Basically, I could say that a good amount of the paper, the brown craft papers that you receive in your homes for delivery, most of them come from Irani. And when we take a look at the growth of this market, we can see its exponential growth from 17 to 23%. With this potential of 16.7%, and we're already a reference, and we're going to continue to be a reference, and we have the necessary investments to do so, and I'll get into this up ahead. So taking advantage of this opportunity now, I wanted to present to some of you guys the Bag Craft line, a recycled package for sustainable packaging. There's the certification for forestry management and the FSC approval, and it's going to be used for delivery bags and retailer bags. There's significant structure and physical resistance. It can also be printable, and it's recycled and recyclable. Within the Bagcraft product line, we have the Bagcraft Prime, a mixed formula, which means that you have virgin fibers with recycled fibers. Then there's we can have a different appearance with a bit of shine or not. And we also have the Bag Smart, which is also a mixed formula. And we have the Bagcraft Cycle, 100% recycled, and it's more of a rustic appearance. So we have possibilities for all different applications. And these three products are having a major search in the market ever since we've launched them all in the previous years. So moving on, we are going to get into a bit of the issue with the investments of Machine 2. Machine 2 is Gaia 3, that we're going to be increasing by 30% of the capacity of the bag craft paper. And I want to remind you that the final purpose or application are for retailer bags and delivery bags. And the total investment of 57 million in this project. The delivery plan is to deliver this in the third quarter of 2022. What I could mention is that we've already confirmed the main packages for this machine with excellent market suppliers, and the schedule so far remains unmodified, and the forecast for delivery is really going to be the third quarter of 2022. And then moving ahead, I get into Gaia 1, which Sergio has already mentioned, which is the expansion of the recovery of chemicals and utilities with an investment of 581 million. And with this investment, we're going to be expanding by 29% our production of brown craft pulp. So we're going to have more virgin fiber paper to offer to the market. We will also increase by 56% the generation of our own energy. And for the production site, Papel Santa Catarina, we're already going to be self-sustainable in the production plants in Santa Catarina. This is specifically for the Santa Catarina paper and not Irani overall. And so it's important to mention also that we've already confirmed the main packages with the EPCs, the boiler, the generation, furnaces, all of the different equipment with big suppliers that are very acknowledged in the market, that have already participated in major developments and construction work in Brazil and abroad. The schedules are all up to date. We have started with a process now where we have the civil work. We already have 12 construction sites that are ready. The construction work has already begun. Soon I'll be showing you a video with Gabi, our manager in the project, showing you a bit of the real project, not only myself talking about it, but the project will be delivered with the estimate budget that we've negotiated with all of our suppliers, and we should not have any delays. How's it going, everyone? Today's October 5th. I'm Edemar, the manager at Gaia 1, and I would like to invite you all to get to know our construction site. Let's go. Here you can see where we're going to be setting up our recovery boiler. So we already are preparing ourselves. The machines are already arriving. Next to it, you can see where we're going to be placing the boiler, and we also have the evaporation area that's also going to be expanded. Here you can see our restaurant that's also been built and dedicated for third parties. We have our entrance here that's dedicated to third parties as well. So as you've seen, the construction is real and it's really full swing taking place at the Campina de Alegria site. As we get into Gaia 6, Sergio had already mentioned our information and process management system with investments of 4.3 million. And this is going to bring data centralization, accessibility in real time with production data. And we will also have information management with measurements and online availability in real time. And the consequence of all of this is productivity gains, reduction in costs, the total digitalization of the site. So quite interesting investments, and this is an ongoing and constant process. It's not something you invest in 1 year and then it finishes. It's always going to be retrofed. So this will bring in a whole new dimension industrially to the site for paper, and we're going to do this in all of the company units as well. So moving on, I'm going to talk about resins now, and I want to clarify what resins are. In this market, it represents 10% of our business, and I'm going to explain what rosin and turpentine is and how we're positioned in this market. So Rosin is used to produce some adhesive materials, paints for printing, wax, bubble gum, and other products. So when you see the use of rosin is always growing, it's adhesives, for example, and stickers for when you close a package, or adhesives for stickers when you want to work with flooring. There's many different purposes or applications, and turpentine is the use of materials for fixation in perfumes, disinfectants. You can see how this market really grew after COVID. Solvents and thinners, production of soaps, etc., and coloring. So 99% of this business is for exports, and we are competing here also with the petroleum and oil subproducts. So once again, we're very well positioned as a renewable source product compared to product or oil-based products that are not renewable. And here in sequence, I'm going to explain our growth. You can see the production from Irani. From 2011 to 2020, we grew 12%. In the last year, we grew 7.1%. And when you take a look at the global average from 2019 to 2020, this growth was negative 0.40. However, when you take a look at the perspectives for 2023, you can see that the chemical sector, has a forecast for growth of 3.90%. I want to remind you all that here you can see that 2019-2020, although the sector was growing less, our sector, since it's more sustainable, took over some room from the production of petroleum subproducts that's less sustainable. So I'm going to end my part here at this moment, and I'll pass on the word to Lindomar once again. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm very happy to be here together with you all as we organize our first Investor Day. We're very happy for this major event. I'm going to be talking to you about the corrugated cardboard market. So in the past 15 years, we had a significant growth in our market share. And I want to remind you that in 2005, we had 2.42% share. And in 2020, we were able to reach 4.07. So this was a growth of 68.7%. And I think a big movement that took place in this period was the inauguration of our production plant at the Indaiatuba unit in 2008, a production plant that we really allowed us to have this kind of growth here in the past 15 years. And at the same time, we also have production growing significantly. As we assess the same period of 2005, we had 65,000 tons, and in 2020, we reached 155,000 tons. So there was a growth of 139%. And here we're contemplating the Gaia 2 project. As we finish the cycle in 2023, we'll reach 191,000 tons, which is a growth after 2020 of 123%. So we would reach the end of the cycle with approximately 191,000 tons. And Irani really stands out, especially with the services in the food sector. This is something that is essential to us. In the first semester, this sector represented 45.3% in the first semester of 2021 for the overall market. With Irani, the food sector represented 72.4%. And I want to highlight here the food sector that's really splitting this per segment. The main segment that's here is the segment of the slaughter and of beef and subproducts of meat, and this represents 31.7%. And this 31% is basically concentrated in the segment of poultry and pork when it comes to Irani. So these are two segments that are extremely important for us, especially in the southern region of the country where we have a production plant in Santa Catarina. This is actually being expanded. So we have this cluster here of the butcheries and the overall animal protein units. It's going to help fill out our capacity. So poultry and swine or pork has been really requiring a lot of investments. So many companies are expanding the production lines to increase slaughtering. Many projects are also working with the greenfield factories. One big example is the factory of Firmeza. It's going to have the capacity to slaughter 15,000 pigs per day. One of the biggest in South America. Actually, Pamplona as well has been investing as well with their new production plant. So two segments that really have been following an interesting pace with the growth of poultry and growth of 4% as a forecast for 2021. And we look at the exports accumulated from January to August. You can see this is a segment that's been growing 6%. When you perform the same analysis in the pork segment, it's growing 4.2% this year. And in the accumulated results from January to August, in the exports, it's growing about 17.1%. So despite all of this scenario, when it comes to difficulties with ocean transportation, containers, and even China's efforts to stimulate internal market consumption and reducing prices and consuming their inventories and stocks, despite all of this, these are segments that really have been gaining expansion. When we look at the Brazilian market for packaging, you can see this forecast of growth in 2021 of 7.3%. In 2020, we ended with, just a minute, let me just solve this issue here, just 1 minute. Yeah, we have this full integration with nature, right? Let's see what he used as a tactic to silence his dogs. No problem. I'm so sorry, guys. At this moment, my dogs in the back here decided to bark. But anyways, as we get back to the Brazilian market, we have a forecast of a growth of 7.3%. 2020, we ended with 3,815,000 tons. And in 2021, the forecast is to have a closing of 4 million tons. I want to remind you that the forecast for September to October is a scenario that's quite moderate by Empapel. Then, as we move along, the worldwide market for packages is forecasting a growth of 2.2% per year until 2035. What calls our attention is the low rate of growth in North America. So you can see the U.S., Canada, Mexico having growth that's below 1.5%. And Europe is also the same thing with low growth. And China's pretty much stagnated with growth that's lower than 0.5%. With a focus on China here, as you can see, the biggest production of corrugated cardboard with 30% of the overall production. Other countries also in Asia and even Latin America, where you have Brazil, have a growth above 2.5%. So when we talk about the e-commerce market, Sergio had already presented some data, but I want to highlight this once again. The market in Brazil has a growth on average of 2018 to 2024 of 22%. In 2021, there's growth estimated at about 30%. So this already represents 176 billion reais, so 11.9% share in retail, and a forecast for growth in the next years. Despite the slowdown that we've noticed in the next years, there's still significant growth, reaching 2024 with 311 billion in revenue, representing 18% share in retail. When we look at the e-commerce scenario here in 2021, 76% of the revenue is concentrated in department stores. An important highlight to the revenue from the first semester of 2021 compared to the first semester of 2020, with a growth of 31% in revenue and 56% of the orders performed through mobile phones. So the market has a huge potential for growth, really, in Brazil. And then still, with e-commerce, we've been working strongly with cases really aligned on customer focus for companies in the e-commerce world. We identified opportunities for improvements. We've Our main objective is to reduce the use of plastic and other non-sustainable materials, using packaging and reduce the amount of raw materials, increasing physical resistance. And in this sense, I think 2021 has been a very positive year, an interesting year for us. We were able to become closer to the main companies in the sector. The 4 largest companies, actually 2 already have our supplies, and 2 more we're developing some pilot projects for. We have 3% of our production already of boxes concentrated in this segment of e-commerce. And we also have the objective of doubling this share in 2022. So this means that in 2022, we're going to be having approximately 7,200 tons sold for boxes in the e-commerce sector. And I am sure that we're going to get there because the work we've been working on developing is very consistent and stable. In the countries, there's been growth in the demand for corrugated cardboard in the first semester of 2021. If you see this vision here, the important highlight is in India and Italy with growth also about 26.3%, Italy with 19.18%. Significant growth in the first semester of 2021. Special highlight here in China as well with growth of 13.1%. Is a real giant in this segment. And I think another relevant point is that when we take a look at India, Mexico, and Brazil, there is a possibility of growth due to the production per capita that's very low. So we've already worked with India with 4, Mexico with 12 square meters per inhabitant, Brazil has 18. So you have a huge percentage of growth opportunities. And here Brazil is classified as the 7th position. But when we take a look at the data for 2021 consolidated, Brazil is ahead of Italy and positioned actually in 6th position in the worldwide ranking for corrugated cardboard production. So now when we talk about Gaia 2, I want to give you an update here on the expansion of the Embalagem in Santa Catarina. Let's move on here to the next slide, please. So here you can see the expansion of the production area. As everyone knows, we continue to operate our factory normally, despite the project underway, which is up to date. And we have been operating with the factory's full productive capacity, and we're still working on the project, and we have the objective of automating and optimizing all of our processes, expanding our competitive advantages, and having more operational excellence and an increase in the capacity of production. And we'll have an increment in the volume of 53% for boxes and slates, and we should have also in the consolidated vision, we'll also have growth of about 23%. So the investments are estimated about 150 million, and the term that's planned for the schedule is 34 months. We also have a quick video to show you what the current situation is in this project, and a presentation by Patricky, our project manager there. Good morning, everyone. Today is September 21, 2021, and I'm in front of this huge building, and this is a real iconic building here for the Gaia 2 project with the expansion of Embalagem Santa Catarina. I'm Patrick, and I'm the manager for this project. So, this is just an update on how our construction work is taking place, and you can see things are really going full swing. So still about the Gaia platform and the second cycle that Sergio mentioned, we have Gaia 8. This is a very important second cycle in one of our production plants in Indaiatuba. They'll be receiving 2 important investments. These 2 investments have been approved already by the board, and they're going to start the deployment in the next months. The first one is Gaia 8, the next printer at the Indaiatuba unit, an investment of 15 million. And this is a process to switch equipment. This is an older equipment from 1995. It's a machine that has significant technology now, many resources, and quality of prints. It's very interesting. And this will add on as well an additional volume in the production line for boxes. And the second project is Gaia 9, which is all about the automation of the intermediate inventory, a project of 29.8 million reais. We're very happy to have the approval of this project. It was a big dream we had to automate the injection production plant in Indaiatuba. It'll be a production plant that's really going to be one of the most modern in Brazil. The first photo shows you the exit of this equipment, where you can see this illustrative image with all of the rollets, and you can see the transfer cars as well. So we have the corrugator in the first image, and then the transfer cars in the bottom. You can see the intermediate inventory with 2 levels, and you have 2 levels. So this is very important, so you can have an intermediate inventory that's enough to service these printers. So you have approximately 14 hours of products for intermediate products. And then on the top image, you can see the pre-fiber products, the pre-feeders. All of the machines will have this kind of equipment. This basically feeds the machines automatically without human interference. So it's a project that brings an increase in productivity at the unit, but it also eliminates risks with posture of the employees. So this is currently done manually, but it's going to avoid this in the future. And this also brings in this flow of forklifts, reducing accidents, mitigating scarcity of labor in the region of Indaiatuba. So it's a project that really will bring in major benefits for the Indaiatuba production unit. So we're really happy with the approval of these 2 projects. Now, that's pretty much it, what I had to share with you today. I'm sorry once again for the dogs barking here at my home office. But anyways, I will now like to thank you for this time, and I'll pass on the word to Fabiano so that he can conduct the rest of our presentation. Thank you very much, Lindomar. So now we're going to talk about people, sustainability, and innovation. Well, let's move on to the next slide. The company has a long history with environmental and social and governance issues. We've always evolved throughout these different topics, but we've disclosed the sustainability report for over 14 years. And this year, we've also launched our first integrated report. Sustainability is at our essence. It's what moves us. The circular economy and our business are intrinsically sustainable. We contribute to generate riches throughout our entire supply chain and value chain, and we also contribute to generating jobs and income in the surrounding communities. At Irani, the way we manage our forests has the FSC certification that certifies adequate sustainability practices. Our products are 100% recyclable. 98% of all of our materials use renewable resources. And besides all of this, all of our production plants are also certified according to ISO 9001 about the management processes, and all of our production plants also have an ISO 14001 certification for the environmental management aspects. We also have the ISO 14064 for greenhouse gas emissions inventories. So we are carbon neutral by nature, and we're pioneers in the worldwide carbon neutral market. We have 2 projects that were approved at the UN since 2006. In the past 2 years, we had a revenue of 378,000 reais generated through the sale of 86,000 carbon emission credits. And for 2021, we're going to be providing 84,000 credits for this kind of commercialization. So our inventory identifies and quantifies the sources of greenhouse gas emissions and also helps us monitor all of this in our manufacturing units and industrial units and offices as well. We can move on to the next slide. In the last 5 years, our balance between the removals and emissions has increased, which is very positive. And we've also committed to some ESG commitments, increasing 20% of our positive balance between removals and emissions of carbon till 2030. So now as we talk about our commitments more specifically, in 2020, 57% of the energy consumed came from identifiable sources that are considered renewable, and our assets will have 100% by 2025 coming from renewable sources. Our self-sufficiency is 44%. Our main challenge is to reach 100% self-sufficiency by 2025 with the entry of Gaia 1 into operation, which is our recovery boiler. In the specific water consumption, we have 11.3 per ton produced, but our commitment is to go beyond this and reduce 30% of this water consumption by 2030. And this places us to all in the commitment of also intensifying the improvements in the processes, closing the circuits with the treatment of water use. And for waste, our target is zero non-hazardous waste being sent to landfills. So we can expand the recycling of plastics, which is really a contaminant that comes with the scraps, developing partnerships for the use of this plastic in other supply chains, expanding the disposal of other organic products as well for agricultural and farming purposes. And this and also would avoid the burning of the waste that come with the scraps. So moving on here, as we talk about people, our people that really make us very proud, they're at the center of all of our strategy, and we believe that the potential of a company is really the size of the potential of each person in it. And at Irani, we have 5 structuring programs for people management. So they monitor employees during their entire experience in the company. So we have what we call Programa Gera, which is our entry into the company, where we really generate awareness and interest from talents to work with them. We encourage protagonism in their career and diversity and inclusion as well. Then we also create within the Gera program, the Gera Diversidade, where we concentrate all of our diversity practices and initiatives to promote diversity. We have a diversity committee that's also responsible for expanding and supporting leadership in debate and bringing our employees closer to this kind of debate and topic, proposing agendas, events, initiatives, and commitments. And, well, within Gera Diversidade, we also have our internal campaigns to generate awareness, such as LGBTQ issues, racial awareness, as well as special celebrations, special campaigns, etc. And so this is our umbrella program that takes care of all of these different issues. The Programa Cuida concentrates all of our initiatives and practices to promote health, safety, well-being for all of our employees. This program also includes some of the benefits, health and dental plans, incentives for physical activities and exercise, mental health campaigns, internal campaigns, as well as all of our policies and training to ensure our zero accident commitment till 2030. The Programa Cresce is where we really encourage our employees to place themselves at movement with an agile learning concept and ongoing learning. So we have our corporate schools, and I'm going to get into more details about. We have the Programa Motiva, where we have our initiatives to encourage engagement and motivation and really valuing people. And Cepedas, where we have our programs for developing skills and also reaching targets and goals. So moving on to the next slide, we have a quick overview of our Programa Cresce, where we talk about our corporate schools. We have 3 structured schools, and we already have 37 courses available on our platform for distance learning. eTech is really focused on strengthening the technical basis for excellence with technical courses for related activities, where we also work on the purpose as the basis for all of our strategy, and also a school dedicated to development of our future leaders, where we really believe in leadership through purpose and in the protagonism of these leaderships to be able to promote the changes that we desire. Now, about the numbers here on the next slide, you can see some important results and challenges that we have as well with this people management topic. We are a great place to work. We received the certification with a score of 87% satisfaction from our employees. We had a significant leap of 12 percentage points compared to our last research. And this considers all the adversities in the pandemic, but we were able to really evolve in the score in this survey. So our turnover is 0.82% a month, and it's an index that is really below the market levels. Our investments in training and skills added up to over 68,000 hours, representing 34 hours per employee. And this is also above the national reference, which is 24 hours of training. Our agenda on diversity involves a major challenge. We are evolving, and we're happy to admit this challenge because we understand this places us in the right direction and in movement, and we believe in the strength of the change and transformation as we advance with this topic of adversity in the organization. In 2020, women are represented 16%, now we're at 18%. And for 2030, we have our commitment that's already been launched to have 40% women in our employee base. Our main challenge is in the operational areas, where you have a predominance of men. So we also want to have 50% women in our leadership positions. By 2020, it was only 15%. Moving on, as we enter our innovation program, we're going to talk about our Innova Program. This includes all of our initiatives for innovation. In 2020, we had over 242 ideas generated and approved, and this led to 22,000 reais in payments to the authors of these ideas, and they have a potential return of 1.2 million reais for the company. But more than this financial return in the program, the main objective is to really generate engagement and a culture of innovation with different ideas that can improve the day-to-day activities of the company and then, of course, create value. So we have 4 technological platforms that are structured with multidisciplinary teams that conduct each of these topics. The first one is paper and pulp, where we have a corrugated cardboard, forestries, and resins, and environmental and energy. And we have 17 topics that are under progress. They're prioritized and worked on, and 48 projects under progress. In 2020, we launched our innovation platform that we called Irani Labs. So we've already had 2 editions organized. We had 227 startups signed up. And in this first edition, we had 4 proofs of concept. And in the second edition, we had 5 POCs, proofs of concepts, to be able to start off work with. And just recently, we also started our corporate venture capital instrument that's investing in startups, and we're still organizing our first call for these initiatives. So now about the first edition of Irani Labs, we had 4 startups that were selected, one for each of the challenges we launched. The first one was Treshin, with the collection and management of scraps, where we also had 3D law piece with new business model topics for products and services. Aterra also with waste management challenges. And finally, in the forestry technology topic, which was Katam, where we performed the proofs of concepts. And the second edition for Irani Labs, we can see in the video that we're going to show you now. Our connection with the ecosystem of startups is still growing. The second edition of Irani Labs had 140 registrations from startups all over Brazil and abroad. 11 finalists presented their innovative solutions on an online event at the Demo Day. And the possibility of strengthening our ecosystem will really lead to major results. We're super happy to be here at our second edition, really seeing the maturity and possibility of having these connections take place with us. We're really happy to see this opportunity. Congratulations to the organization and to all of the startups. And yeah, the contact with all of the startups is really rich. And now with this edition, we can notice that there's more maturity, better quality, spectacular engagement and participation from the organization and presentations. It's a virtuous cycle of possibilities to generate riches and for transformation of Irani into what we want as a company, transforming the lives of people with attitudes and sustainable solutions, which is really our purpose. The winners will develop a proof of concept with the possibility of incorporating their solutions into our businesses. Together, we continue to collaborate to accelerate transformation in the paper and packaging sectors. Second edition, Irani Labs. Well, finally, the past 2 years were very challenging, but they were definitely compensated by the innovation contributions we had. And we're among the leading corps when it comes to open innovation. We're among the top 5 for the paper and pulp sector among the 100 open corps in 2021. And we were also received the Champions of Innovation award from the Grupo Amanhã. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. And now I'll pass on the word to Ajivam that will continue with our presentation. Thank you, Fabiano. Good morning, everyone, once again. And well, as we do things in this way, we really intend to fulfill our purpose of transforming the lives, attitudes of people into sustainable solutions, but also delivering economic returns to all of those that really believe in us. So now I'm going to talk about this a bit, and we can move on. We have our strategic map here, as we had mentioned in the beginning. I'm going to mention a bit of the little blue box here, because at the end, this is the consequence of everything we've done that you can see below here. So this map is from bottom up, where we invest in people, processes. We can contact our customers and stakeholders to really generate different economic results above our cost of capital, which at the end really involves the interest of these financial investors. We can move along. So now you can see the scope of my presentation here as we look at the growth of the returns above cost of capital to generate unique value for our shareholders. So as we talk about capital structure, we currently have a capital structure that is still suboptimal because of the fundraising with the IPO. So we have a participation of third-party capital 42%, and from our own capital 58%, which is a bit out of our normal policy. Our policy considers that we should reach 50 to 70% of third-party capital and 30 or 70% of our own capital, so that we can, through leverage, really potentialize the returns on investments. But this, of course, should not bring too much risk, because we live in Brazil. We've already gone through very complex situations in the past, in 2008, and also in the recession in 2016 and 17. So we've set up our capital structure so that it can be resilient in any kind of scenario. So we know how complex the scenario in Brazil is and how things change very quickly. So that's why we structured it in this way, so that we can navigate calmly through adverse moments. So we are re-leveraging the company at this moment, and this is going to happen through financing for the Gaia platform that you can see on the right side. We see the first column with the first cycle, which was Gaia 1 to 5, where you have about 883 million reais. And the second cycle, Gaia 6, Innova, considers a total of 953 million reais. So these two cycles were approved in the board, and they are under progress, under deployment. And on the right side, you can see the sources of these resources to be able to make this investment feasible. The main source is BNDES. It is where we have the approval and contract signed, and we're going to be having the first payment from BNDES with a total of 480 million. So it's a 16-year operation with a 3-year grace period that's very adequate for the type of investments, long terms in reais, with financial cost that is very adequate. We also had a private debenture emission of 60 million reais that was placed here in Brazil. It was already deployed, and 339 million we're going to be using with our own resources, which is basically what we were able to raise through the IPO. For those 70 million in the second cycle, we're still defining the main sources of funding, and we want to present this subsequently. So we can move on. As we consider the debt position with the third-party component, and how we're doing towards this. First of all, due to this capital structure issue with participation from third-party capital that's pretty high still, we have leverage of 0.77% net debt to EBITDA, which is what we closed with in the second quarter with. And we want to reach we could reach 2.5 times. That's our target, but we plan to remain below this even during the deployment of these investments. And this is very conservative if you were to compare with the rest of the industry. In the paper and pulp sector normally has higher leverage, but our vision is that the structure can really optimize a return for shareholders, would be maybe a little more conservative. So we've already had a higher leverage in the past, reaching 4 or 5 times, but we were sometimes caught by surprise, having to refund some of our debts, and this generates some pressure and challenges. And then we sometimes have to hire debt in conditions that are not so favorable. So due to this learning process throughout our history as a company, we now plan to work with a leverage rate that's a little lower because of the uncertainties in the economic scenario in Brazil. Our debt is 97% in local currency, and this is a very important point as well, since we are mostly having our revenue coming from the local market, 85% from the local market. We don't plan to have debts in foreign currency, but these 3% that are in foreign currencies are short-term operations that are hedged by the customer portfolios, which is a big advantage. It really stabilizes this policy. So when you look at the dividends payments, you can see predictability. We don't have the currency variation impacting our last line, basically, in our P&L. And it's really easy to foresee. It's very predictable to consider the data for each quarter. which also gives us a predictability for the distribution of dividends, because we have this policy I'm going to cover a bit more up ahead. This debt is already about 3% in the long term. It's going to remain as such, and due to this leverage, we're going to be promoting the company, and about 90% of the debt, this percentage will drop when we have the BNDES coming in. But the main message that we want to share is that the company can fund itself in the debt market with the main sources for funding available in the market, which is the capital market through debentures or other structures that we could access, or even a CRA financial instrument, which is open as a possibility for the company, as well as the investment banks like BNDES, which would be still a very important funding source for industry. And we are now counting on the support of the BNDES as well in the next cycles. Besides all of the ECAs, ever since as long as we can perform the swap of the operations into reais. So our debt imported through, which is supported by the strong cash generation as well that we've been having in the past times, and we also have a quick capture through the Gaia platform. So the Gaia platform is really going to optimize our current assets. So it's not only focused on expanding the capacity, although some of the projects are expanding, such as Gaia 2, Gaia 3, with packaging and papers, but the biggest returns come from cost reductions, and this brings us a lot of confidence for this return on investments, because we can substitute the acquired energy by our own energy, and this does not rely on the market. It happens regardless of the growth in the GDP, which gives us a lot of confidence as we capture the returns on the projects for the Gaia platform. And in the capital allocation discipline, we can see new projects as we decide on these investments, so that these projects can really bring in a return rate that's way above our cost of capital, and thus generate more value. So we sometimes have some specific projects that we have to work on, but normally they're not so relevant, and they're just part of the dynamic of the business. We can move on. Now, as we look at the debt situation, our main focus is with a balanced capital structure that's optimized and with a controlled leverage of 2 or 2.5%. We plan to have a quality of credit that's higher, and thus access third-party resources with the lowest costs, because our main effort here is to reduce the cost of capital from third parties, which is a very important component of the cost of capital when we consider the average weighted cost of capital. So this is why we need to have lower risks in our balance sheet with a capital structure that's very well balanced, that's very robust to support any period during crises. And so this is why we always work with a lower leverage and this better balance between our own capital and third-party capital. And this is already reflected in our results. You can see our debenture, which is a green bond. We're also issuing green bonds from now on, from 2019 onwards. And also in 2021, it's also a green bond, because our business is focused on ESG. So all of the cash we use, we can apply to businesses that are fundamentally focused on ESG aspects with recycling, renewable energy, and sources as clean energy use, all of the circular economy, carbon credits, and so on. So our bonds are always green bonds. Then we also have Celu 13, one of the biggest debentures of 505 million reais. We have 109 investors that are institutional plus individuals, and we also have our private debenture. So on the line you can see there's a drop in the secondary results and how the debenture is trading. So it started off with 4.5% above CDI. There was some stress in the beginning of last year during the pandemic due to the crisis of the credit funds, and then after it was normalized, and now it's dropping. So now in July, as you can see, we also had a trade of about 3 loans in our rating by the S&P agency that really captures all of this balance of the capital structure and the resilience of our operations. So our rating is in Group A, which is allowing us to have access to the capital market at costs that are very attractive. So our rating allows us to access these future issuances with lower rates, reducing the KD, the cost of debt. So the debentures still being carried by CDI plus 4.5, but if we were to issue a debenture now, it would be a lot lower. So the future issuances will help reduce our third-party capital costs. We can also have the rescuing of this green bond, and we also have BNDES with some terms and costs that are adequate that help us have a more comfortable KD. You can move on, please. As we look at the equity front, we have a policy for dividend distributions in at least 50% of the profit with a payout of about 50%. This year, 25% quarterly, and another 25% at the assembly in the subsequent next years if we had a leverage of up to 2.5 times net debt to EBITDA. So if the leverage is comfortable, then we would be distributing another 25% of the net income, which would be representing a payout of about 50% of the profits in that year. Another reason for us to keep leverage below those 2.5% so that we can allow for this dividend distribution to shareholders. Our stocks have been performing well despite the recent drop. Ever since the IPO, this increased about 41% compared to 8% at Ibovespa and 5% of the small index that we're also included in. And the total shareholder return, as you can see on the red side, we have 38.4% per year, and 33.1 comes from the appreciation of the share values, and also 5.6% comes from dividend distribution. So for individuals that are hearing us today, when we talk about the appreciation of the shares, we need to consider the dividend distribution plus how much it increased in value in the market compared to what was paid from start. And then you can calculate the total return with these two components in the appreciation of the stock prices. So moving on, we have a shareholding base of 40,000 shareholders. This is growing, and this makes us very happy. Our average for daily negotiations and trading is at about 14 million reais ever since the re-IPO in July last year. It also dropped recently due to the drop in the price of the shares. So when you have a variation in the share price, this affects the average trading price. But we have an effort to really maintain this at the highest level possible. So we had the integration with the Novo Mercado in December 2020, and ever since then, we have been working on many different live sessions with the board, earnings calls with the financial community and investors that really intend to disclose the company and share more information. We have found many investors that want to invest in the company, and all of these are available on our IR websites. You can watch all of these recorded live sessions and videos, as well as we'll be recording this Investor Day and providing it later on. So we've also been strengthening our presence on social media with interviews. We have really unique service to investors for people that want to clarify any questions. We have an investor relations team that have been working to answer all of the questions submitted. We haven't organized a site visit due to the pandemic, but we do believe that soon we will be able to invite our investors to come visit our sites, and then also bring people in and welcome them into our operation. And now we had our first Investor Day. It's the first of many that we plan to be organizing, and then we'll be sharing some topics related to the day-to-day activities of the company so that investors can find out a bit more about Irani from inside out. And well, here you can see our we're reaching the end of our presentation here, where we have our ROIC, which is an important metric for returns on invested capital, of 17.8% in the second semester. It's a world-class, best-in-class ROIC. We compare ourselves with other competing companies or pairs in Brazil and around the world, and our ROIC is actually above many of the biggest world-class companies, and this is growing. So the ROIC is still impacted by the capital structure that we have with this proportion of our own capital and third-party capital that still involves a lot of our own capital. So we're going to be using the resources we have in our cash to be able to perform investments, and this will help also to improve the ROIC. ROIC will also be capturing some returns in the Gaia platform. So as we expand the margins in this platform, our expectation is that the ROIC will continue to improve in the next quarters. And well, when we compare ourselves with the cost of debt after the benefits of taxes and the income tax and all of that, we can see that our ROIC is way above the KD. So the direct comparison here is with the WACC. We are just bringing in the KD so that each investor can also perform their own calculations and take a look at what the WACC would be, considering all the methodologies and their own ways of seeing and understanding their own capital costs and how the WACC could affect this, the WACC. But it's not the 5.5% because the KD has the benefits of the income tax, and the level of risk is lower, so the cost is normally lower as well. But it's also way below the ROIC, and that's when we can really see that over time there was a generation of riches that was very consistent, as the ROIC is way above the WACC. So with this, you can see an improvement in the operational margins in the Gaia platform. The re-leveraging with lower costs should reduce this KD, and we will also have a reduction in the WACC due to the rebalancing of the capital structure. And so we also have an increase in this, we have the increase of interest in Brazil. Another reason for us to maintain this capital structure in a very behaved and controlled manner. We're going through a cycle of monetary adjustments where interest will most likely eat up a lot of the companies that have high leverages, and this should affect our KD, but we do have room to maintain these in adequate levels as well. So anyways, this slide here really shows you the pathway we're following in the company, with major possibilities to generate riches in a consistent manner over time. Considering the operational issues that were mentioned with our positioning and trends, as well as sustainability trends, e-commerce trends, and low carbon credit economies, as well as the capital structure and the adequate capital structure that we have. Well, we can move on to the last slide now. With this, you can see a summary of how we understand this unique value delivery, and our businesses all have the ESG essence. So we are in a low carbon economy, and we have this positioning, investments in people, as Fabiano mentioned, investments in innovation and the business as well. And this is where we can really generate this ROIC that's so robust. So this is really based on a very consistent strategy that Sergio has presented ever since the beginning. So we have the predictability in results when split by dollars, with the resilience in the business, and you can see this way above the WACC, the returns from the Gaia platform with low risks, a very conservative political policy for finances that really helps us ensure a good level of dividend distribution. And with this, you can really have this combo of dividends, distribution, and growth. We pay for dividends that are very regular every quarter. And we can also integrate growth through margin expansions in the Gaia platform investments, and also with an improvement in the top line with revenue, adding on new capacities and possibilities in the next cycles. The stock purchasing program that's underway at this moment really intends to optimize the use of this capital. The company has been generating a very robust cash position this year, as well as the cash from the IPO process, and we saw that the market really displaced the prices of stocks to the point where this actually moved us to repurchase the stock prices, because we understand that this is not actually reflecting the intrinsic value of the company, and for the Irani shareholders it would make sense to use the company's cash to rebuy part of the shares within the legal limits and framework. So this is kind of like the combo of how we can generate unique value for shareholders, and we plan to continue to doing so throughout our journey and investment cycles. And now we have our last slide here that's going to be presented by Sergio. So just to close this presentation, as we can head to the Q&A session, we have a lot of questions that were presented today, but here is a bit of what the company we expect to have in 2030 after the end of this strategic cycle, growing with unique value generation for shareholders, an optimized capital structure. We want to potentialize our investments and really have a return for shareholders that's even greater, considering the optimized capital structure, self-sufficiency, and renewable energy generation. This is a fundamental cost item for a paper company, and as we grow, we will also create other sources that can support this growth, maintaining self-sufficiency among the best places to work in Brazil. This is our target. We want to be in the great place to work and the best places in Brazil to work, because we think this is what sets the basis for our growth. Unique talents and people that are motivated. And we are very happy to have a team that really is passionate about the company and passionate by what they do. And this really motivates us a lot as we search for excellency to be among the great places to work in Brazil. And so we might not be the biggest or the best, but we want to really be admired as a reference in the market, with a company that's dynamic, that innovates, and a company where people can fulfill their dreams professionally, and society really admires the company because of the value generated, and a very innovative, diverse, and inclusive company as well. We want to have diversity that we see in society also present in our company. So this is a target from this cycle. We want to really advance in these issues related to diversity, inclusion, and all of these topics that are so relevant. So this is the company we want to have in 2030. And I think we have a good amount of these that we've already been able to achieve. But there is a major evolution that must take place so that we can reach this photograph of 2030 in a way that really motivates us a lot. So I want to thank you all for your presentations. I think it was really interesting to hear all of our directors, and I want to thank you all for your presence as well. So now we're going to open up for Q&A. So Mariciani will help us. She's responsible for, together with her team, Evandro and all of their team in IR, that are constantly in touch with our investors. So Mari, you can organize the questions now. Thank you, Sergio. We received a question from YouTube from Guilherme Donadel. He asked if the cardboard collectors can take the scraps directly to Irani, or if they go through an intermediate party before. Do you want to present this, Edjivan? Yes, of course. So the structure of the circular economy, you can see the scraps. They're right behind me. And here you can see the, basically it's just the boxes that are disposed and then packaged once again and sent to the industry that recycles this. And they can recycle it up to 7 times. But there is an intermediate there's an important player in this supply chain, which is the scrap collector. And this guy performs the purchase and collection of the people that pick things up in the streets or from supermarkets. They clean, package, and sell this to the industry. We have over 1,000 scrap collector companies that have a very important role to make this supply chain work. And this is how we can really search for a higher level of recycling, as Sergio mentioned in the beginning, with almost 80% through paper that is recycled. Great. We also received a question from Gustavo Farias de Freitas, and he wants to know if there's a worldwide patent for the antivirus paper. Fabiano? Hi, Sergio. Yeah, this patent, we have the Nonox. This company has the patent for the input or product that's applied to the paper. And we also have a exclusivity agreement with them for a good period. So question 3 came from YouTube as well. It's from Fernando Dias Tavares. And he's asking about how the sales from the Embale website are doing. Ojivan? So Embale is a very recent initiative. We just started it now in the past 3 or 4 months. And so it's really just starting. We have over 100 customers. It's growing, but it's still very little. It represents very little for Irani, but it's a bet we have on the long run. So it's surprising us very positively, and we are really exploring this potential, but there's, of course, lots of work up ahead. So for it to actually generate relevant results, we still have a long journey that we have to fulfill. Now, question 4 also came from YouTube, and it's about if there's any perspectives on an increase in exports due to the Chinese market. Well, actually, we export to over 20 countries, including China. China is not the main market. The main markets are the ones that are closest, where we have better profitability. But of course, the Chinese market, if it's more heated, then you have a more favorable increase in better prices in the regions that are closer, and it also provides this channel of the Chinese market. So when this market in China is heated, you also favor other sectors in the Brazilian economy that favor the use of our products, generally speaking. We also have another question from Zoom, Carolina Albuquerque. She wants to know if the pulp paper is, what's the basis for the pulp paper? 100% virgin fiber. Virgin fiber is from pine trees. In case the person is not aware of this, our pulp is pine based, and this paper is 100% virgin fibers. And we also have another question from Zoom. We received a question from Gustavo, and he says, from all of these investments you have in the Gaia platform, how much capex from the maintenance do you consider will be necessary to keep the platform after it's built? There should not be an expansion in the maintenance capex as a whole, because actually the boiler, we're going to turn off 2 furnaces that have a very high maintenance cost, and the recovery boiler will have maintenance costs that are actually lower than these 2 furnaces, which are the main investments. And also in the packaging production plant, maybe we'll have a bit of the expansion of maintenance costs due to the technology of these new machines, but it's nothing very relevant. So in the consolidated results for the capex of maintenance, we should not have an expansion except the annual inflation, basically calculated upon those 75 million that we already have predicted for this year. So Caio also asked about the possibility of opening up his microphone to be able to ask a question. So we're going to open up your mic. Okay, hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me all right? Yes, we can, Caio. Thank you for the presentation and for taking my question. I have 2 questions, actually. The first one is a little longer here, but I just wanted to understand a little more about this vision for 2021, 2030 that you've presented in regards to your project platform. In our calculations at the time when we were participating in the IPO with you guys, we had forecasted leverage that was a lot higher than what we have currently in the models due to this better cycle of corrugated cardboard that was way above expected by everyone. And now I think there's high chances that maybe you'll go through this investment cycle based on what you have approved with leverage almost at about 1 time, actually way below 1.5 times. So my question is pretty much in this direction. I wanted to understand the 2 points about this new phase, this third phase of the actual Gaia platform, which would be the studies for the expansion of the Minas Gerais paper production. And we're looking at a project that's actually pretty similar to the one before the IPO, but with higher margins due to what the market's presenting to us. Or would this be a different project, a project that has a different setup than what we already discovered and learned about during the IPO process? And also, what would be the timeline you're looking at for this future expansion? And the second question also in this expansion line is related to what you had presented very quickly on these investment plans in paper and pulp production investments and how you're looking at all of this. If you could maybe share a bit more on these plans, because by what I understood, this would be after the Gaia platform. So how do you consider the setup for the company in 2030, for example? Just to summarize the big question here into a quick point, right? How you're looking at the company in 2030 when it comes to the capacity for paper and pulp productions and the overall production for corrugated cardboard, and how you look at the rupture of your inputs and the split between scraps and pulp. And also maybe a second question would be, I would like to understand, considering this drop in scraps, almost 40%, we have one of the biggest questions we have, and this is a question we've received from investors and customers, on if we should already notice some kind of pressure on the corrugated cardboard costs and prices in the next quarter. So I believe that by the end of the year, the prices and margins are pretty much guaranteed. But how are you looking at this margin level for 2022 or even in the long run? So is there a stronger cycle than the previous one in regards to profitability and margins? Thank you, everyone. Okay, Kaya, thank you for the questions, but let's split this into parts. So ever since the IPO, we've been reassessing this project. We have a new conceptual engineering project so that we don't have any kind of projects that would not have inadequate returns. And so the trends also for the improvement of technological improvements, and we've reached a model that we're actually at the final phases that can increase the production capacity considerably at the plant. And there's better returns, but it's a little lower than what was foreseen, not in regards to returns, but in regards to the total production that was imagined for the original project we had. So to answer your question, yes, we've restructured the project with returns that are better. And we've also been addressing the issues with the competitive advantages of the production plant, such as energy from biomass and a boiler that's biomass-based. It's kind of a combo for that production plant, and it'll have very adequate returns. So this would be the first point. Now, for the next investment cycles that you're mentioning, I think that, as I mentioned, there's a big focus on the company's growth. I noticed that Marina had this question as well about the machines. And actually, we are forcing a second pulp production line. We have pulp currently that's being produced with... It's a type of pulp that's specifically for bags and bags with low grammage with a lot of flexibility, and it's adequate for the production also of paper but for low grammage. So we would have a second production line for pulp productions, and the recovery boiler that we're working on now is already adapted for this expansion. So the second production line would be for pulp above 100 rate, which gives you a little more rigidity for the fiber, and this will give us access to markets that we don't participate in now, with heavier boxes that lead to better profitability actually than other segments in corrugated cardboard. So the second pulp production line will also include a new paper machine, and we plan to optimize this site here in Santa Catarina, which is very competitive with our own energy, utilities, forests that are very close. And this would be a hybrid machine for kraft liner production and also recycled paper. It's going to be a 2.5 meter machine with a production that's very similar to what we have in machine 5, something close to 12,000 tons per month. This is what we're planning. We're at the phase for these two investments with the conceptual engineering work with Cardi that's supporting us in this process. And we should be, well, if this leverage is still low as we imagine and as you're predicting, we should be bringing these projects into approval as soon as we have the engineering complete and we have the values all defined. So these are all projects that will most likely happen very quickly if this leverage remains at this level, because we would like to optimize this capital structure as soon as possible. So about the scraps, we can see some stability. There was this drop of about 40%. And it is possible, however, that we could enter a cycle with scraps that have lower values due to the introduction of more virgin fiber paper in the system through the Klabin kraft liner machines, with most of the production really focused on exports. But there is part that will be presented in the internal market, which will then bring in more availability for virgin fiber, which should generate even more availability in the system with the scraps as a whole. So this year, we don't consider a drop in prices taking place. There is obviously some pressure in some products that where the scraps are really an important component of costs. And these are components that have already had some kind of drop in prices. But the prices of boxes, paper, and cardboard boxes and other categories that already had some very substantial increases in the past year and a half, this kind of profitability is here to stay. So we should remain having some kind of profitability that's pretty positive in the next quarters due to this profitability that took place in all of the segments we have. So I hope to have answered all of your questions, Kai. We just maybe add on the issue with the demand. We don't see much of a issue with a reduction in prices. The demand's still very strong and the trend is growing. So this issue with the e-commerce, you have a production that's a little lower for the second semester last year, in the past 2 months most likely, but the prognosis is very favorable due to the trends we've mentioned throughout the presentation. So e-commerce increases the size of the market sustainably, and we should maintain this protagonism with paper and corrugated cardboard very strongly in the next years, and we are very well positioned. So about your question, you had a question on 2030 and the size we'd have. I think we have many variables that could be considered. We should accelerate this next cycle of growth and investments, and possibly we could even have more expansions up ahead, and even some type of M&A. We are not considering this in our strategy as a priority due to our recent experience. It's really difficult to incorporate good assets, but there are good companies, and we position ourselves as well as a potential consolidator in the market as we assess companies that will lead to relevant growth. So in 2030, we'll have relevant growth. We're talking about a machine that's 130,000 tons, and we're going to be heading to 430,000 tons of paper per month, and corrugated cardboard production that's really in line with the evolution of paper. and 1 or 2 more packaging production plants for the increase in production that we're going to have in Minas with this new paper machine as well. I hope to have answered all of your points, Caio. Thank you. And I think there was also another question also from Irina about, it was here in the chat, in line with this, just to clarify the last points here. Yeah, so they could be working on eucalyptus craft liners. Well, our region is not so appropriate for the production of eucalyptus as in other regions of the country, but we should have a machine that is, we're going to actually study this possibility, Marina, but most likely we'll have a craft liner machine that's pine-based, and we have a region with abundant forests here close to the factory, and probably in 2025, the startup could take place in 2025, around then. If we start accelerating this project, we may be starting next year, and the startup actually should happen about 2 years ahead. We also have another question on YouTube from Gabriela Cortez. She says, well, guys, one of the advantages in the company is the greater use of scraps as a raw material. Could you compare the margins between the recycled fibers or virgin fibers in the production? Thank you very much. Would you like to talk about this, Henrique? Well, I think I could contribute to answering this question. Well, Gabriela, the recycled fiber and the virgin fibers, we always look at the returns on the investment. For virgin fibers, you have high capex. You have to have the land, make the farms, and wait for the trees to grow. So you have a big investment for pulp production, and there's higher EBITDA margins, obviously. But in recycled fiber, you have lower capex because you just invest in the recovery of the fiber and the paper machine. So the capex is a lot lower, and it's of course normal that you would have a margin that is smaller in the recycled fiber than in the virgin fibers. So but when you consider the actual returns of the investment, according to our calculations, they're very similar actually as returns, and possibly will even favor recycled paper, once again considering the use of capital due to the lower capex. So the comparison of the EBITDA margin is not necessarily the best to consider. You have to consider the return on invested capital in each of the strategies, the ROIC. Well, I think we have time maybe for a last question. We're kind of already going over time at this moment, but we have time for maybe a final question, and then we can reach the end. All right, Sergio. So we have Gustavo Marcondes. What are the risks for the deployment of the Gaia platform? Do you consider any possibility for an increase of unexpected costs for the execution of the platform? No. We've already hired the main projects with Gaia 1. We already have all of the packages confirmed. We should have some kind of inflation variation in the cost of labor, but it won't be relevant. We have some contingencies to protect us from possible variations in this sense. So we don't see much of a risk here. Another project is also the Santa Catarina packages, which is all hired as well. We're in the final phase. We're receiving the imported equipment, and with the corrugator and also Falcon machine from Japan, and we already have parts of the corrugator machine in Santa Catarina already. So there's not that many variations in prices that are going to be significant when it comes to the equipment. And we also have another comment from Guilherme Donadel, says, oh, you're going to have the repurchase of shares. He said, oh, there's going to be the repurchase of shares. Yes, that's already happening. The program was launched, and we've already begun the repurchasing process, because we consider that the value of the shares in the market does not represent the value of the company at the moment. And I think this is extremely healthy to have some kind of a program like this to provide a message to the overall market, and also to profitable as the current shareholders as well. All right, so I believe that that's what we had to share today. For all of the other questions that were submitted, we will be answering them through chat as well, and Mari will coordinate these answers to everyone. So I want to thank you all, thank all the directors for the presentations, all of the IR team as well for their work, organizing the event, the marketing team with Hosanna and Andrea, Vincenzo, Evandro, Manuel, Hosanna, Elizabeth as our translator as well, Alex, Gisele. Thank you all, everyone. It was really great to be with you today, and we'll see you at our earnings call that will be taking place in the beginning of November. All right, so thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a great day.